Earlier on, another body was retrieved from a disused shaft. We're talking about shaft 11 in Stilfontein in the northwest, bringing to two the number of bodies retrieved today, because there has been a development. Another one has been brought to the surface. Yesterday, community members pulled out two bodies from the shaft as well. Newzroom Afrika's Ziniko Mhlaba is there and joins us for the very latest. Ziniko, just tell us what's happened over the last 45 minutes or so.
The last time we spoke, Iman, we were saying, the volunteers are pulling, something from underground. And of course, a few minutes ago, it was confirmed that indeed a second body had been pulled to the surface. And of course, here are the emergency medical services together with officials from the forensics. So currently, they are leading this bakkie, which you see on your visuals. They are moving towards the side where they will be then given an opportunity. I'm referring to the emergency medical services to then examine the body. Then they will confirm that indeed this individual has died, and then obviously forensics will take over from there. So that is a very, very important stage. It is only the emergency medical services with the responsibility of declaring somebody, dead. So that's what they will be doing now as that bakkie is moving away from our shots. But back at the scene, those are the volunteers and some aid organization leaders, but also community leaders with some volunteers. Most of the volunteers have again been asked to move away from the site so that they can take a break. I'm not sure if we can see them there under those trees, just taking a break. After that daunting task of pulling a body from underground. As we are watching them from where we are as members of the media, it took them about almost an hour to conclude that retrieval process when they started to understand that the body was a bit deeper than the first one, which was retrieved within 45 minutes. But this one, it took them a much longer time to get that body onto the surface. So they are there just camping, sitting on those rocks there, watching the activities being done, especially when it comes to law enforcement agencies and the forensics and the officials from the health department. So that's what has happened so far. And of course, remember, Iman, that the first body was retrieved at about 9:28 in the morning, and the second body has been retrieved. So it took about an hour to get the second body onto the surface. It will be interesting then, Iman, to see whether forensics will finally depart with these two bodies, who are the bodies which have been retrieved so far here at Stilfontein shaft 11, or they will again stick around. And if they do stick around, that might be indicating that maybe they are expecting a third body to be retrieved within the next few hours or so. So that's where we are right now. And I can also confirm that, community volunteers have been reinforced. A bakkie just drove in not so long ago with about 10 more community volunteers who have joined the rest of the guys who have been with us here in the morning. And those are the guys who retrieved the first body, and they retrieved the second body with the help of the additional members who were brought in just not so long ago. So that's where we are right now. But we also understand that now, from this particular moment, we can expect, food items to be deployed or to be taken down underground. It will be then interesting to see whether it's the same food items which were deployed or taken underground yesterday, which are mostly about instant porridge, some forms of amageu. Remember, there was that court application yesterday which challenged a police minister and the community safety and other departments in terms of, condemning them for limiting the types of food which must be taken underground. They are saying that, well, the minister or government must not, limit the type of the kind of food which must be taken underground. So we'll see once those food items are taken out of those vehicles, we'll see what type of food is that, and indeed whether if government had really, adhered to the latest application which ordered them not to have or not to limit any forms of food items. So that's where we are, Iman. So far, we can confirm that now. Overall, we've got four bodies which have been retrieved between yesterday and today. And if we add the body that was retrieved weeks ago, we are looking at 5 bodies which have been retrieved from this specific shaft, which is shaft 11 here in Stilfontein.
Ziniko, just for some practical clarity, because I think everyone probably has an image in their minds of what the mouth of that shaft looks like and what the coming to surface of that body would have been, and how food supplies, which we are seeing now, or water and replenishments are being sent down. Just describe that a bit for us in a bit more detail around when we talk about the retrieval of a body, for example, who's attaching the body to the line that then gets pulled up, that rope or that device, whatever it is, that's allowing that body to be pulled to surface? Just take us into the practicalities of that.
All right. So what usually happens on a daily basis, especially in the past 2 days, man, community leaders would obviously, when they get closer to that sign, closer to that hole, they will make huge loud sound. And we understand that that is a way of communicating and alerting illegal miners underground that, well, the process or the operations are about to start. So we are talking about a hole of about 2 kilometers from the surface to where the miners are reportedly underground. And that message would go, because it's an echoing sound, because this is a whole long, shallow hole that we are talking about. So someone is able to, to make that loud sound. And of course, that loud sound then gets to the ground. And then following that, the people on the surface where we are, the volunteers, community leaders, will drop a rope, and then it will take that rope about 30 minutes maybe before it reaches the surface, where then those underground will be able then to do whatever needs to be done underground. If maybe they want to attach a living individual or tie someone, on that rope, then eventually after that process of tying that, they will make a similar sound, but now from a different direction, from underground, and that echoing sound will come to where we are, but it will not come in words. It will just a sound of a wind, because of the distance. Then the sound gets lost, through that distance of 2 kilometers. So the volunteers on the surface will be able to catch that sound of a wind, and then for them, they say they do understand that it's a response from the illegal miners underground. So once that rope gets to them underground, they will tie, they will wrap, the body is already wrapped up from what we understand. All the bodies underground are currently being wrapped already. So by the time the rope gets to them, they will just attach that body, and then they'll make a similar sound towards the direction of where we are onto the surface, and then that's when maybe the gentlemen or here who are doing the retrieval or the pulling of that rope will start pulling. So that's how the process works. And now we understand that now those illegal miners underground have run out of the material which they use to wrap those bodies underground. And of course, the community leaders who are with us are saying that, well, they also have run out of those material used by those underground to wrap those bodies. So it might pose a challenge in terms of the next bodies which must be retrieved onto the surface due to that shortage of the material which is used. But we'll confirm with them maybe in the next hour or so in terms of what is then becomes Plan B in that scenario. Will they be able to really find a second Plan B, or they will have to go back to their communities and try to mobilize some funds to purchase that material which is used? So in the meantime, if that is the case, that's when we can start then seeing, the deployment or the delivery of food supply to the ground. And what was happening yesterday, when a bag of meal or instant porridge has been, dropped down underground, then those illegal miners underground will use the same food item parcel to wrap around the body, and then the volunteers on the surface will start pulling that body. However, that material is never used again for the deployment of food supply to the underground world where the legal miners are. So that's how these operations have been happening. It's something that is very shocking. It also surprised us when we saw that gentleman early in the morning making that loud sound, looking towards the ground, towards that hole. And obviously we asked what was happening, what form of communication was that, what was he doing? Then that's when he explained that actually I'm trying to alert those guys underground that we've arrived, we are officially starting with the operations at that particular moment, Iman.
I think that's a really great way, Ziniko, for our viewers to understand, because our visuals are limited. We're above ground. We have seen, previous visuals that give us a sense of what that anatomy of that network, the tunneling network, looks like. So that's also added a dimension to our understanding. But as you're explaining there, this sounds quite complicated. It takes long periods of time. And again, from a human perspective, when you think about those who are underground having to wrap up the remains or the bodies of their colleagues or whoever they're working with together, that must also be, quite a traumatic thing to do. Bearing in mind also, Ziniko, that we've seen a number of children come up to, or young people come up to the surface, 14-year-olds and younger, coming to the surface over the last couple of days. That there's so many, different people in the mix here. And we keep saying it's a race against time. It literally is, given and borne out by the fact that you have said over the last couple of days, we're now at a rate of 5 bodies that have been brought to the surface.
Yes, that's right, Iman. Obviously, the issue of them living amongst dead bodies underground is really something that must be very, very traumatic, especially to the young people who are underground. But also the fact that, they're able, because I understand that some of these illegal miners who have died, whom have been retrieved at this current particular point, some of them, have lost have been, deceased for some time underground. And that is what led those illegal miners underground to then start, moving them to a particular area underground where they won't be able to be exposed to them physically in terms of living closer to those bodies which have been wrapped up. And that is why they've been emphasizing the point of communicating with those leaders onto the surface to try as much as they can to ensure that they've got the sufficient supply of those materials which are used to wrap those bodies around. And that has been the case. And the last time we were here for rescue operations, especially under the guard of the police, but also those operations being done by the community leaders themselves. That was about 2 weeks ago. The illegal miners here at Retrieval did tell us that, as soon as these rescue operations resume, they'll prioritize, ensuring that they are sending onto the surface bodies of those who have lost their lives underground. And that's exactly what we are seeing right now. But what we don't know at this point yet, Iman, if maybe the bodies which have been retrieved so far, are the bodies of people who died 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, even longer, or are the bodies of people who had just died maybe in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. However, if you look at the state of the bodies, the 4 bodies we are referring to, over the past 24 hours to where we are right now. The first body that was retrieved yesterday was badly decomposed, and of course, if you look at the state of the composition of that body, you can assume that maybe the body had been underground for some time, for over 2 weeks, according to what we're told by the police officials who got exposed to the state of that body. However, the last body that was retrieved yesterday, was not in so much bad state compared to the initial body, and the second body that was retrieved today, it does not seem to be badly decomposed as the one that was firstly decomposed yesterday. So we will then get maybe an idea of the state of the body that was last retrieved from us here. So that's where things are at this point, Iman. And then obviously then this also brings into question the issue of protective gear. The volunteers who are actually retrieving these bodies are running short, or most of them, 80% of them, do not have masks. So that's one of the things that have been raised by the volunteers themselves, saying that they would like to be given masks so that when a body has been retrieved, they are able then to protect themselves from the shocking and stinging smell they get exposed to.
Wow. Yeah, one really doesn't know what to say, Ziniko, at a loss for words. And it's also interesting looking at some of the provision there. Initially weren't allowed to take down things like tinned items. and that now being done, and that will provide some provision. I think as Ziniko, we continue to watch this with you throughout the course of the day. Some of the things that we need to reflect on as well is, you know, what the latest is on any kind of negotiation with those underground, because on the other hand, government is trying to bring this to a resolution and to a head for all of those who are still, underground to be brought to the surface. We've seen some of the earlier reports around those who have come to the surface, then being arrested and appearing in court. So this is an issue that's been dragging on for weeks now, and given again the rising death toll, it's a situation that isn't going to end well. So we'll come back to Ziniko Mhlaba a little bit later on. More bodies being brought to the surface. He's at shaft 11. We have been focusing on shaft 10 and on Margaret shaft as well. So these are the 3 shafts that are involved where some of these illegal miners are coming to the surface. A story we'll continue to watch. You heard Ziniko also say the expectation for more dead bodies being brought to the surface is high.